Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Tales of Herding God Part 106 based on novel. So let's start. Pan Gong-so was angry and anxious as he stuttered, "Cult Master Qin, don't joke with me, my surname isn't Qin. I'm from the barbarian tribe." Qin Mu was furious and shouted, "Qin Gong-so, are you not acknowledging your ancestors of Qin family? You even said you were born in Carefree Village. Little liar, shut up." Pan Gong-so attacked with overflowing anger, and Qin Mu immediately defended. One of them executed Grand Shaman Ruder scriptures to transform into a bird-headed mutant, while the other one executed 9 dragons monarch technique to look like an awe-inspiring emperor. With the roars of dragons and cries of birds, the dragon-shaped divine arts clashed numerous times with the bird feather swords. The two of them may have looked young, but they were both ruthless. Each of their attacks was lethal, and every move wanted the other party's life. Based on the intricate moves, there were no divine arts practitioners in Six Directions realm that could be compared to them. However, because the battle earlier had exhausted too much of their strength, their vital chi wasn't as dense as earlier. The power of their moves was still no small matter, though. Even if they fought fiercely, looking like they didn't want anything more than to beat the other to death, their feet were still inching closer and closer to the door. They knew what each other was thinking about, and they fought closer and closer to the door. Just as they were about to open it and escape, the treasured ship trembled violently. The owner of the 2 eyes outside the bridge was slightly angered, so it shook the ship and caused it to tremble endlessly. Suddenly, an invisible force came over and bound the 2, pulling them to the windows of the bridge. They immediately stopped and didn't dare to resist. The abilities of this mysterious entity were a profound mystery, and even Pan Gong-so felt his scalp crawl. Even at his strongest in his previous lifetime, he wouldn't have been its match. The 2 huge eyes outside of the ship had a hint of anger. The sinister voice next made them shudder without even feeling cold. "Which one of you has the surname Qin?" Qin Mu and Pan Gong-so pointed their fingers at each other in unison. "Him." That voice spoke again. "Both of your surnames are Qin." Pan Gong-so shuddered and immediately said loudly, "My surname is not Qin. I'm the Grandmaster of Roland's Golden Palace. Senior can ask around." The foreign voice was very strange, and seemed to brush across their souls. It was ear-piercing and shaking them into numbers. "Since your surname isn't Qin, there's no need for you to stay alive. Looking at how things are now, it seems like I can't hide it from Senior anymore," Pan Gong-so said with a resolute expression. "That's right. I'm none other than Qin Gong-so. This guy beside me is the Grandmaster of Roland's Golden Palace, taking other people's bodies through reincarnation. He's called Pan Mu. May I invite Senior to make a move to immediately get rid of this useless person?" Qin Mu sneered, "You called me Cult Master Qin just now, so could your words be bullshit?" The 2 people looked at each other furiously and gritted their teeth, wanting to dig into each other's chests, to pull out that black heart out to gnaw on. The voice was silent for a moment before asking, "Which one of you is 16 years old?" Pan Gong-so and Qin Mu looked at each other in the eyes. Then Qin Mu immediately said, "I'm 16 years old." Pan Gong-so also said in a hurry, "I'm also coincidentally 16 years old." Even though Qin Mu was 15 years old in name, his age was counted since when Granny Sai had picked him up. The people in the village were always debating about that. Some felt that he was 15 and some felt that he was 16, so Qin Mu didn't know how old he was exactly. Pan Gong-so was only 13 years old, but because he was a person of the prairie, staying in the wind and sun daily had made him look much more mature. Therefore, both of them looked like 15 to 16 years old. The pair of vertical pupils revealed a confused expression, not knowing what to do with the current situation. It was different from what he had imagined. He had guessed that it would be either people from Carefree Village, or a 16-year-old boy with the surname Qin, who would come to take the treasured ship back to Carefree Village. Yet now there were two youths that looked to be the same age with surnames Qin. Who was real and who was fake, he couldn't determine it. "You guys shall activate this ship and head to Carefree Village," the voice declared. "No matter which one of you has the surname Qin, as long as you can get this treasured ship to Carefree Village, you won't die." Qin Mu immediately took the silver-colored helmet off and stuffed it in Pan Gongso's hands with a sincere expression. "Qin Gongso, didn't you always want this helmet? Now you can take it away." Pan Gongso picked the helmet with a headache. He wanted to reject, yet Qin Mu kept pushing it to him, so he couldn't help scolding him countless times in his heart. However, he still put the helmet on. His gaze wavered. Even if it was him who had lived for 10,000 years, experienced countless historical moments, had lots of knowledge and secrets, he still didn't know much regarding Carefree Village, let alone where it was located. He only knew from the records of Dao Sect, Great Thunderclap Monastery, and Little Jade Capital that it was a place to become a god. Gods were active there, and they were the remnants of founding emperor era. Him coming here this time was also in hopes to rely on this ship to bring him to the mysterious place so he could become a god. Now that he had received the control helmet that he had dreamed about, how was he going to go to that so-called Carefree Village? He wore the helmet and felt his brain become several times larger, making his groan uncontrollably. What a sabotage! He was sabotaged by Qin Mu. No wonder that fellow had called him Qin Gongso the moment he met him. He had been waiting for him here. However, if you think I will die here, you're underestimating me too much. In 10,000 years, countless geniuses had died. No matter whether they were Dao Masters, Roulet, or immortals, didn't they all just die when their time was up? Over the 10,000 years, only I survived, and what I relied upon wasn't my comprehension or aptitude, but my extraordinary abilities. The reason I survived for so long isn't because of luck. Pan Gongso's gaze flickered, and he quickly figured out the controlling method of the silver-colored helmet. He tried to dot the geographical map on top of the helmet, and the treasured ship trembled, but it still didn't pull itself out from the beehive seals. "Senior," Pan Gongso immediately said, "this ship is stuck and can't be moved." Suddenly, the treasured ship trembled violently and shook off the beehive seals in the surroundings. It was obvious that the terrifying entity had made a move to shake this treasured ship out. The beehive seals loosened from the vibration and numerous cracks appeared. The seals then crumbled like colored glass, and the devil chi of Yudu poured into great ruins. At this moment, the two white bat god sculptures trembled, and the mountain rocks rumbled, falling off the 3,000-yard sculpture. Where the mountain rocks once were, the two white bat god sculptures revealed the color of flesh. Blood could faintly be seen running under their skins. Thump! The sound of heartbeats suddenly came from the bodies of the two sculptures, and it was deafening. In front of the treasured ship, the huge sculpture that was half buried underground was also trembling. The black rocks on its body flew off in all directions and smashed onto the cliffs in the surroundings, splitting open the stone cliffs with loud cracking noise. The black rocks that came off the sculpture also revealed the color of flesh underneath. It looked like a god that was petrified was waking up again. Pan Gongso was delighted. He knew many secrets that others didn't. In regards to great ruins, he also knew quite a lot. During one lifetime, he had found a treasured land and encountered an unimaginable change of events when he was exploring it. There was a seal in that treasured land at that time, and he thought there would be some world-shaking treasure there. Never would he have expected that after he broke the seal by force, it was not treasures inside. Instead, it was a devil god. However, right when he thought he would surely die, a sculpture of a divine beast suddenly transformed from stone to flesh, as if the divine beast had revived and beat up that devil god that wanted to kill him half dead, sealing him once again. After that, the divine beast returned back to the stone platform, and its body gradually petrified once more. It changed back into a stone sculpture. From that time onwards, Pan Gong Tso rarely stepped into great ruins. He knew that there were too many secrets buried there, and too many dangers, as well as murderous intent. Any carelessness, and he would die inexplicably. However, this time, he borrowed the strangeness of great ruins to fight against the mysterious entity. The treasured ship was embedded in the seals, so if it was moved, the seals would be broken and the gods and devils that had created this seal would revive from their stone statue state. With this, Pan Gong Tso would be able to resolve the danger in front of him. From the tremors outside, the current situation was progressing as he had expected. The god statues that were reviving would soon clash with the terrifying entity, and when that happened, that entity wouldn't have the time to take note of him. Furthermore, he would be able to attain this ship and the silver-colored helmet that controlled it. As expected, the tremors outside became even more violent. Even though he couldn't see what was happening, from the pulses of the clashes, he could imagine how the terrifying entity was discovered by the sculptures that had revived and were clashing against each other. Ha ha ha, this ship is finally mine. Boom. Before he could even finish laughing, a punch smashed ruthlessly onto his chest, and the helmet fell off his head. Qin Mu grabbed the red tassels and laughed loudly as he punched his opponent away. Pan Gong Tso was furious and sent his flying locust to attack. Qin Mu raised his hand, and Carefree Sword brought its flying swords to block the attacks of the flying locusts, while he himself walked towards the cabin door. Pan Gong Tso guarded the cabin door, his face filled with murderous intent as he attacked ruthlessly. The two of them clashed once more and exchanged hundreds and thousands of blows in an instant. Suddenly, the treasured ship gently jolted and slid off from the shattered beehive seals, landing into the Yudu world shrouded in darkness. The two of them were astonished and hurriedly looked out the bridge only to see the ship in darkness, floating away silently. Meanwhile, behind the ship, the beehive seals were currently disintegrating, their glows extinguished one after another. They were getting farther and farther away from them. Qin Mu hurriedly put on the helmet, and tried to control the treasured ship to sail back. The beehive seals were the gate for them to leave Yudu world. If they floated deeper into this land, no one could tell what dangers they would face. Never did he expected to get hit by Pan Gong Tso the moment he put on the helmet, which resulted in him being smacked ruthlessly into the window. The helmet was then snatched by Pan Gong Tso, who put it on his head. Qin Mu sent a sword out and flicked Pan Gong Tso up, then threw him to the side the next instant, and took the silver helmet back for himself. The two of them landed on the ground and looked at each other ruthlessly. Suddenly, the last beehive seal shattered and the light vanished. The treasured ship continued moving, and the hearts of the two people turned cold. Neither of them knew where the entrance to the real world was anymore. "It's your fault," Qin Mu and Pan Gong Tso said in unison. In the bridge, two figures moved up and down as Qin Mu and Pan Gong Tso were still beating each other up and struggling for their lives. They thought that since they couldn't find the entrance to the real world, why shouldn't they just get rid of their hindrance first? Only by killing the other party could they continue to control this treasured ship to find the exit. Otherwise, it would be quite a headache, with such a great enemy watching their every move and free to stab them in the back at any time. Pan Gong Tso was a person who had reincarnated. His advancement in cultivation was amazingly rapid, and Qin Mu didn't want to leave him alive. If he dragged this out, Pan Gong Tso's cultivation might just surpass his, so he had to get rid of him as soon as possible. Pan Gong Tso, on the other hand, realized the dreadfulness of this new human emperor. The potential of his growth was astonishing, and his character was sinister and cunning. It was hard to scheme against him, so he might end up the one getting duped. The longer he dragged this out, the more dangerous it would become, so he had to get rid of Qin Mu as soon as possible. The two of them had already exhausted their cultivations, no longer having the ability to swiftly kill each other. As they tried to kill each other, their vital qi exhaustion increased even more drastically. Not long later, the two of them were covered in wounds and gasping for breath. Bang! The two of them clashed for the final time, and then fell to the ground on their backs. Neither of them had any more vital qi or strength to stand up. Qin Mu crawled with difficulty to one of the flying swords and grabbed its hilt as he revealed a smile. It froze soon, though. Xianxiang, I'll definitely smack your bum into 3 segments and make you unable to lie down on the bed for half a month. He had grabbed the sword hilt, but since his flying swords were all made from black gold essence, each one was about 300 pounds in weight. With his current strength, he couldn't even drag one. As for why they were so heavy, it was naturally Xianxiang's great doing. On the other side, Pan Gongtso was trying his best to gather trace of magic power to execute a flying locust to get rid of Qin Mu. However, his vital qi kept breaking off, causing the flying locust to not be able to fly. It could only slowly crawl towards Qin Mu, its speed not any faster than that of an ant. Qin Mu turned around and tried his best to crawl toward Pan Gongtso. On his way, he took out a bunch of toxic herbs from his Dao Tai sack with a strange smile on his face. The flying locust that Pan Gongtso had controlled finally caught up to Qin Mu's thigh and landed on it to take a bite. However, since his vital qi was simply too weak and the strength of the flying locust wasn't big, it took it a very long time only to bite through the pants. Qin Mu by then crawled forward while enduring the pain, and Pan Gongtso became flustered. He tried his best to flip over and use both his arms and legs as well as his chin to push himself away from Qin Mu. One of them hurried away, while the other gave chase at a speed that was slow enough to raise hackles. They pushed themselves for a long time and crawled some 3 to 6 yards. Suddenly, Pan Gongtso pulled out something from his Dao Tai sack. It was a bottle gourd that stored shaman poison. Pan Gongtso was delighted. This was the shaman poison he had refined in his previous lifetime, and its toxicity was fierce. It was easy to use it to get rid of Qin Mu, so he stopped crawling away and turned back to reach his opponent. Qin Mu saw this and immediately turned around, which took him quite a while. The poison in his own was only a half-complete one, while the one Pan Gongtso held was completed shaman poison, its toxicity not to be underestimated. Rascal, you're dead. Pan Gongtso moved quickly and finally caught up to Qin Mu's legs. He tried to open the mouth of the bottle gourd with excitement until his face turned red from holding his breath, but he still couldn't pull it open. Qin Mu thought he was definitely going to die and turned back to look. Pan Gongtso then immediately repeated himself, "Rascal, you're dead." He hoped that it would scare him off. "Little prince, you're already out of strength, aren't you?" Qin Mu sent a kick over and stuffed his foot into the other's mouth, trying to choke him. Pan Gongtso's eyes almost rolled backward from disgust. He then hardened his heart. "I've already reincarnated so many times, so why am I still bothered by the insult of the corporeal body?" He bit down onto Qin Mu's foot, and Qin Mu pulled back his feet from the pain. He sneered before applying poison onto his foo, preparing to stuff it back into his mouth once more. Pan Gongtso took the chance when he was applying poison to crawl over. The two of them twisted their bodies around as they tried to choke each other, however, they had no strength in their hands. Furthermore, the breath of divine arts practitioners on 6 Directions realm was astonishingly long. After choking each other for more than an hour, they still couldn't choke each other to death. Instead, they had exhausted the last bits of strength they'd had left. The two of them turned completely limp, only their fingertips toes, and eyeballs still slowly moving. They were doing their best to adjust their breaths to recover a little of vital qi, wanting to get rid of the other party before they could recover. As time slowly ticked by, Qin Mu recovered some strength. He took out dragon saliva to apply on his wounds. Even with a body forged by iron wouldn't be able to endure letting blood to just flow out from the wounds. On the other side, Pan Gong Tso took out a jade bottle and consumed some medicine. As an existence which had lived for 10,000 years, he had learned a lot of stuff and had very deep attainments on the path of healing. He had also researched famous shaman poisons and could even poison a soul. Qin Mu took a glance at him and revealed a fearful look. Pan Gong Tso was a jack of all trades that was rarely seen. He was proficient in all kinds of skills. Even though they didn't reach the highest possible levels, they weren't ordinary. If he was able to combine all he had learned into one, he would definitely have an astonishing improvement. Of course, that was very difficult. Pan Gong Tso had no hope in fusing all that he had learned. Even though he had superior abilities and wisdom, his drive had long been obliterated. There was no more heart to improve within him. Pan Gong Tso didn't continue to attack. After going through so many lifetimes, he still couldn't hold an upper hand against Qin Mu. When he met him for the first time, he was pressured by him and nearly lost his life. This time, both sides resulted in utter defeat. This really set him back. In his body was the power of his previous lifetimes, but he couldn't touch it carelessly. He had to continue raising the durability of this body, polishing its foundation, so that it could endure more power. The power of his previous lifetimes was too terrifying, so if he was careless, he would explode his current body. However, as long as he improved it, his cultivation would reach the peak it once had. Because of that, his speed in cultivating was still superior to that of Qin Mu. However, it had been 5 months since they had last met, so according to logic, his cultivation should have left Qin Mu far behind. Never had he expected that they would still be evenly matched. The two of them didn't say anything and just looked out of the windows. The Yudu world looked no different whether one looked up or down. There were no 4 seasons, no earth, sun, and moon, and naturally, there weren't any north, south, east, or west. Any other world would have the differences in 6 directions, but this place didn't. In the lonely Yudu, the treasured ship floated aimlessly in the darkness. The farther it floated away, the harder it would become for it to return to the real world. In this kind of loneliness, its passengers would probably go crazy before long. Outside the ship, a light flashed in the darkness of Yudu. It was a life form of Yudu, flashing its light in the darkness to attract prey. However, what was weird was ever since the treasured ship had entered Yudu, there had been no terrifying Yudu life forms coming near it. Qin Mu and Pan Gong Tso suddenly thought of the reason and were astonished. There's probably another terrifying existence on this ship, which is why the life forms of Yudu don't dare to come near. The terrifying thing was naturally something else that was on the ship and not them. Qin Mu recalled the devil qi that had poured forward when he just boarded the ship. This confirmed to him that they weren't the only ones on the ship. There were other things hiding somewhere. The human heart is really sinister. This world is so challenging. My bones might get cleanly eaten if I let myself be a little careless. Qin Mu stood up shakily, and Pan Gong Tso immediately became alert. He hurriedly went into a defensive pose, but Qin Mu didn't attack. Instead, he took down the Dao Tai sack from his back and opened it, then put all of his flying swords back inside. Pan Gong Tso sighed and also put his flying locusts back. Cult Master Qin, there's still an unpredictable danger on this ship, so we should work together and walk through this crisis in as one instead of continuing to fight each other to the death. What do you think? Qin Mu beamed. I had the same idea as well. However, it's hard for me to be at ease working with you. Pan Gong Tso's gaze flickered, and he said, I'm not reassured about you as well. Cult Master Qin, you and I are opponents, and I had underestimated you in the past. However, from now on I won't underestimate you anymore. This journey was different from what I had imagined. Entering Yudu world muddle-headed, and there are still secrets on the ship as well as a terrifying existence in hiding. You and I have to bury the hatchet and work together. Only then can we manage to leave this place alive. If we continue fighting like this, we will only die here. Qin Mu then said reluctantly, in that case, we will cooperate only on this ship. Once we are off it, we'll return to being enemies. Pan Gong Tso revealed a smiled and nodded. Deal. Deal. Qin Mu hesitated for a moment. Do we need to sign the Pact of Earth Count? Pan Gong Tso smiled and said, no need for so much trouble, we're only temporarily cooperating. Qin Mu nodded in agreement. It seems to be so. Pan Gong Tso let out a sigh of relief to himself. This new human emperor is still young, he can't outwit me. If I signed the Pact of Earth Count with you, I could only ally with you. How would Illinois have the chance to get rid of you then? Both of them had ill intentions, but Pan Gong Tso was the first to speak. We need to find my subordinates, so we can regroup. Only then will we have the strength to protect ourselves. Qin Mu nodded and said, Grandmaster is right. We'll do as you say. That's right, Grandmaster, this silver helmet. He took out the silver helmet with the red tassels and gave it a troubled look. Pan Gong Tso wanted to snatch it, but he was afraid that Qin Mu would sneakily attack him when he put on the helmet and shook his head. Now that you and I are working together, we will naturally have to trust each other. You shall safekeep it for now and follow me. I have calculated the marvel of the rooms in the ship. What's used there is the spell of integration. Qin Mu was sincerely impressed. Grandmaster is wise. The two of them finished packing up and walked out of the cabin only to see the ship completely empty. There was nobody else, no sign of any life. There was only some green liquid glowing on the deck. The treasured ship was huge. The white bats, the dragon Qilin, the great shamans, and shaman kings that Pan Gong Tso had brought as well as the soldiers of barbarian Di Empire were most likely still trapped in the rooms. The two of them consumed some spirit pills and tried their utmost best to recover their cultivations. As they walked side by side into a room, Qin Mu executed Overlord Body 3 elixir technique to catalyze the medicinal energy. His cultivation recovered 20 to 30%, and the wounds on his body had already scabbed over. Those scabs started to fall off, because of the dragon saliva he'd applied earlier. Pan Gong Tso's injuries were also much better. His spirit medicine wasn't inferior to that of Qin Mu. Suddenly, Qin Mu saw the old man from the painting flashing across a wall, and his heart couldn't help stirring, making him give chase immediately. Pan Gong Tso immediately shouted, "That's the wrong way." However, Qin Mu had already opened another door and rushed into the room. Pan Gong Tso forced himself to follow after him, furious in his heart. If there was a place in which I could still use you, I would have gotten rid of you long ago. Rascal, if you land in my hands, I won't let you have an easy death. They barged into the room, but the elder in the painting didn't stop. He went into another room, and Qin Mu quickly followed after him. There, he came face to face with another person, and the two of them nearly collided as they avoided each other in a hurry. At the instant the two figures met, they were both astonished. Heavenly Devil Cult Master. Barbarian Di Empire's soldier. Qin Mu's reaction was faster. At the instant they crossed each other, his palm was raised, sounds bursting off it. With thunderous rumbles, his mudra was imprinted on the back of that person's heart. Tempest of the 9 Dragons. His palm landed on the back of that person's heart, and his strength poured out. Only then did that person react. When the knife pellets rose into the air, the power in Qin Mu's move had already burst forth. The dragon-shaped force bombarded the person. The first wave crumbled the vital qi protecting his body, the second wave destroyed the structure of the muscles at the back of his heart, the third wave crumbled his bones, the fourth wave shattered his heart, and the fifth wave pierced his chest, transforming into a blood dragon that burst out from his body. The knife pellets of that soldier from barbarian Di Empire rose into the sky, and fine curved blades hummed as they separated. At this moment, Qin Mu raised carefree sword, and it sliced the knife pellets into halves. They instantly broke down and transformed into hundreds of broken knives that dropped to the floor. The vital qi of that barbarian Di Empire's soldier dispersed, and he collapsed to the ground, dead. Pan Gongso was a step too late, unable to save that soldier. By the time he got close, Qin Mu had already closed in and killed that person. Pan Gongso couldn't help becoming furious and shouted sternly, "Cult Master Qin, that was my man." Qin Mu's carefree sword returned back into its sheath, and he shook his head. "Your man's first reaction, in seeing me was to kill me, so I only defended myself. If I didn't make the first move, I'd be the one lying down there. If Grandmaster is not happy, why don't you walk in front? If your men meet you, they won't make a move." Pan Gongso was hesitant. If he was to walk in front of Qin Mu, he would show him his back. Seeing how the brat had killed that barbarian Di Empire soldier with nimbleness, it was clear that he would be even more nimble if there was a chance to kill him. He didn't dare to hand his back to Qin Mu. Furthermore, Qin Mu only mentioned one situation. If the next person wasn't Pan Gongso's man, but the two white bats, or the dragon Qilin, Pan Gongso could already imagine his end once he got trapped between the two forces. However, it was a horrible plan to run around aimlessly. Qin Mu was barging into rooms at random without any pattern. It was clear that he hadn't solved the integration on the treasured ship. If Pan Gongso continued to go through room after room with him aimlessly, he would probably also lose his direction, and would have to recalculate the structure of the rooms on the ship. "I can't let this brat lead the way," Pan Gongso thought while opening a room. Here, sound of a door opening came from his back, and he saw that Qin Mu had already run into another room. Pan Gongso was furious, but he could only chase after. In the end, the silver helmet that controlled this ship was still with Qin Mu. The two of them came to the next room and suddenly stopped. Qin Mu lifted his feet, noticing that there was some sticky liquid stuck to it. The room was covered in green sticky liquid that filled the ground and walls. Even the table was covered with it. Qin Mu looked around and saw that the elder from the painting was also in the room. He was carefully avoiding the sticky liquid, moving through places that did not have it. He was a human from a painting, and this sticky liquid was dangerous to him as it could glue him to a place, thus he had to avoid it. Pan Gongso also saw the old man from the painting and was astonished. He hurriedly waved the 1,000 Locusts banner in his hands, and violent clanks sounded out as Qin Mu executed his flying swords to block the flying locusts. Pan Gongso was furious and looked at Qin Mu while asking in a stern voice, "Doesn't Cult Master Qin owe me an explanation?" Qin Mu said indifferently, "My surname is Qin, this is the best explanation." Pan Gongso's heart trembled violently, as he instantly caught the crux of the matter. The terrifying entity whose eyes were 900 yards apart had been waiting for a person with the surname Qin. The reason why the two of them had caught its interest was because they were both Qin. He was extremely clever, otherwise, he wouldn't have survived for so long. He thought to himself, could the owner of this ship have had the surname Qin? This brat and the owner of the ship are from the same family. If that's the case, then he must also be from Carefree Village. No wonder this guy came all the way here, but wait a minute. 16 years old, that terrifying entity had been waiting for a youth that has the surname Qin and is 16 years old. This brat is also 16 years old. 16 years ago, this ship crashed here, so there has to be a connection between all this. He suppressed his astonishment and waved his 1,000 locusts banner. Qin Mu then pulled back his flying swords. The old man in the painting found another path and went through another door. The two of them immediately followed after him, and when they pushed open the door, they saw a long corridor. Pan Gongtso was stunned. He had calculated out the spell of integration used by these rooms, so he was able to find where the bridge was, but he hadn't expected such a corridor. By right, the total number of rooms should be what I had calculated, so why is there some place I don't know about? He was confused. If he did not solve the spell of space integration, how did he find the bridge? If he had solved it, then why wasn't this long corridor present in his result? In his calculation, there was absolutely no way this long corridor could exist. This video will end here.